transfer portal recap, and we'll get a little nostalgic. You're Locked On.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Do me a quick favor, see that little button on the bottom of your screen, click it. Helps our channel grow and our audience grow. And frankly, I truly appreciate all of your support. It's invaluable to me and the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets in any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Welcome all in. I have a co-host today on the show from the Dream Season podcast, Matt Edwards. Matt, with Alex Karaban's decision in limbo, did UConn do enough with this transfer portal season?
I assume they did. I assume that they go into the offseason knowing all the potential outcomes of what's going to happen. I assume that they plan for surprises in the portal. They think they go in knowing, but maybe somebody was going to surprise them and jump ship, but it didn't happen. And obviously they knew that Alex has a chance to go pro, and he's got until the 29th. And I'm sure that they have, if they knew, it would be easier if they knew that he was gone for sure and they could replace him earlier. But since they don't know, I assume that they have a plan in place for if he goes, if he stays, what's going to happen. And I trust the staff to make the right decision.
Yeah, we talked pre-show. I mean, how could you not trust this staff at this point, right? You got back-to-back national championships, what feels like the algorithm to make things work, right? In this kind of formulaic way, they've figured out the analytics. They figured out, where people are best when they hunt for shots, whether it's twos or threes. So you'd like to think that they have this entire transfer portal out. And I think my favorite thing that Dan Hurley said in his first media availability about the transfer portal is outside entities. Did you catch that when he was talking about how?
Oh yeah,
the rankings, like who ranks whom? And he's like, with all due respect to these sites, where we have people in our rankings is different than say, On 3 or 24/7. He didn't name them. I'm doing it.
Right.
Or rivals. I think they all do it. Do you does that kind of mirror? Because you're a Dolphins fan. Does it ever kind of make you wonder? It's kind of similar to like a draft room. They have
absolutely.
They have a war room. They have their like top 30 guys.
Yep.
And it kind of like falls as they go. And it's not so much like that because you can pretty much get anybody
right
in the portal, but it's about who fits and why it matters, right?
It's all about the fits. That they're watching tape and all these guys. They're taking notes all year long, which isn't crazy to think that they do that while running the table every year and winning back-to-back natties. But they know what's going on, and like you said, they have a ranking, and I'm sure they know like if player X goes to this team, and this team doesn't need this player anymore, so that's going to open up something over here. So I'm sure they have so many different possible scenarios all mapped out that they're just working on, and that they'll hopefully make the right decision. So to answer your question, yes, I think they've done enough given what they know. And if they need to pivot, they'll pivot.
How do you think about what do you think about the transfer portal in general? Your opinion?
I don't mind it. I think it's kind of interesting. It's another new wrinkle. I'm sure the staff doesn't like it because it's just so much extra work that they have to do and put into it. It's not as simple as just going out finding some high school kids to recruit. But I like it because you're able to rebuild the team quicker. You're able to find the pieces that fit that you're going to be missing and you're going to need. So we saw it in action last year. Who would have believed that a back-to-back title was? Sure it's possible, but did anybody really expect it? And now same thing going into this season, right? 3 in a row, really? But I trust in the staff to fill in the holes that they have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, as soon as I started talking about a three-peat in any of the prior shows, the comments I get are, man, there's no way someone's going to three-peat. And it's like, well, we didn't think they were going to go back-to-back either. Exactly. And I'll never forget the very first loss. And it's someone that we both know, and probably the reason why I found your show. Chris Smith of Bad Choice Milk, a fellow Dolphins fan, a fellow Mayor tonight. he said when they lost, and this is no judgment on Chris. This is just, I feel like everybody felt like this. When they lost to Seton Hall in the Big East opener, it was kind of like, well, here we go. We're probably going to have one of those, grind it out 12-6 or, 12-8, 13-7 Big East seasons, just because the Big East is what it is. Right. And nothing could have been further, opposite of the truth. Right. So it's so interesting because I don't think anyone thought they were going to win 37 games. I don't think they thought we would essentially, 18-2 in the Big East. I think people thought we would win the Big East tournament. You know what I mean? Like going into the season, that was kind of like the carrot. So yeah, I mean, I think you do have to trust them. I have one really interesting question because you had a relationship with Jim Calhoun. How do you think Jim Calhoun would handle the transfer portal?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know if he would. He seems more basic. Like this is the guys that I want. This is the kind of guy I want. I don't think he would be. I would hope that he would, excel at that like he did everything else. So he would find a way, but it'd be interesting to see how we would do that. I don't know. I think we have the top of the class in terms of how to approach everything that goes into building a program at this point. So, I don't know how he would. That'd be interesting. He got the guys he wanted. And it wasn't always the 5-star guys. So he kind of would find the same guys that would fly under the radar, that the outside entities weren't ranked as high, but he would find the guy that would fit into the system and come in and do what he needed to do to put a winner out there.
Yeah, I feel like that's the connective tissue between the two. They're vastly different in like the time frame, right? It's today's day and age. The kids that he brings in, Dan Hurley, I'm talking about, they're dealing with just different issues, right? They all have cell phones. They all have these little mini computers in their pockets that they can access any information. People can contact them at all times. Whereas Calhoun, coming from a different era, I just would be curious if you juxtaposition them or kind of switch them. I think it would look very similar. I think it would look, he'd be trying to find the diamonds in the rough, the Nadav Hennefelds, right? Like a guy from Israel, right? They'd find Emeka Okafor, I don't believe was, a top guy. So I think you're right. Like you'd fall into Charlie Villanueva, you'd fall into your McDonald's All-Americans, but that also, have you ever heard that story about Charlie Villanueva about how he was all set to go to Kansas and he was there with Bill Self when he first got to Kansas, and there was a tornado that hit close to campus and he was like locked in a gym and he was like, I'm not coming here.
Excellent.
I heard that on a show and I was like, I always tell that story when his name kind of pops up. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, so the transfer portal is interesting. I think Calhoun would handle it really well. Have you looked at some of like who do you think like the type of player? Let's say Alex goes. So let's assume he goes. It's May 29th, and he calls Dan Hurley and says, "It's too good to pass up. I think people are going to pick me at the end of the first round or early second, and I'm going to go. We wish you well, all the flowers in the world, Alex. But like I've said in the last show, when you lose your job or someone leaves, there's a job board goes up with your exact specs is needs to be filled. Right. Who do you think they go to? Do you think they go kind of find a fill-in guy that's not going to get a ton of minutes? Do you think they go like big and kind of, because contingencies have to be made? I'm so torn on this because I know they don't want to go against their word and give their guys minutes that they're doubling down on.
Right.
Solo, Jalen Storr, Jaden Ross, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think they know it, but they're not sharing that, obviously. I think, from what they've seen in practice and all the workouts, they know, again, if Alex leaves, we're either going to elevate these guys, they're going to step right in, or we have to, and then do they get something to fits a different role that's not the 6'6" wingman that can do everything, or do they try to replace him? I don't think you can replace Alex, so I don't know if they're not going to find somebody. So I don't know, again, if there's a formula that they know of how it's going to work, and I trust in them. So I think whatever it is, I hope it's the guys that are on there. But again, we don't know. We don't know if that staff feels they have confidence in those guys, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to get a little nostalgic in the second segment of the day coming up after this. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment playoff shot count. All right, we're back with Matt Edwards of Dream Season Pod. If you haven't listened to the Dream Season Pod, you can get it anywhere, right, Matt? Spotify,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
Wherever you get your podcast, go check it out. It's fantastic. It's about the 89-90 UConn Huskies Dream Season. When you think about the name of your podcast and of that season, well, first off, who coined that phrase? I know it, but I'm curious. Let people know who haven't listened to your podcast yet.
I did the research. I don't remember. I think it might have been Alan Greenberg, who was a columnist for the Hartford Courant.
Okay.
And it just came up, at some point early February, probably that year after the ride had started. And we're in the middle of a dream season, and it was definitely coined before the season ended. And I know there's a clip of Tate George mentioning it after they hit the shot in Clemson. So it was somewhere. I'm assuming it's somebody from the Courant. I think it was Alan Greenberg, but I'm not sure 100%.
I love it. Do you think that we can coin these last two seasons as dream seasons parts 2 and 3? Because yeah, I mean, I think when you've won, that's 5 and 6 on the national title scale, but it's also one of those things where every one of the other national championships kind of stand alone. This is a continuation, so that's why I'm thinking of it more like it's a dream to win back to back.
It really is. It's hard to believe, and it's a ride that I hope doesn't end anytime soon. But it's incredible. We know that this is not normal, and it's not expected, and it's just it feels like you're living in a dream. It's especially after what we've been through with the end of the AAC era and just how low things had gotten. This is unbelievable. It really is.
So we have your blessing to coin this dream season parts 2 and 3 with 4 loading.
We come up with something. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely been a dream. I don't know if there's only one dream season, but this is I
love it.
This is something. I don't know. We'll have to come up with a good name.
Yeah, we don't want to do like we talked about Jaws. We don't want it to be Jaws, Jaws part 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, or Fast and Furious for those of you who are of the younger generation. We don't want to keep making the same movie over and over again. Although I'm fine with us winning national championships and continuing to do that. I think we're good with that.
Absolutely.
So what was your favorite part? If we go back to take the last 2 seasons, let's just kind of what's your seminal moment of any of the 2 seasons? You could pick a couple. What comes to mind?
I think so. Last year, again, there was no nail biters in the tournament other than, I think the Providence game in the Big East tournament, they blew them out, but then almost lost the lead. But that blowout was fantastic with the crowd at the Garden. Sounded so loud on TV, and then they almost blew it, and then they lost to Marquette. So that kind of took the air out of the balloon there a little bit, but then they went on that run. So, the final, I was at the Final Four last year. I was at both years. So I think anything from, the run of the March game, the Miami game in the semifinals, and then just, I guess, Hawks 3-pointer to put them up to seal it at the end with 5 minutes left in the title game in 23. And then this year, obviously the Illinois, the 30-0 run is up there, but there were so many. I mean, beating St. John's at home without Donovan, and, blowing out Xavier at home, blowing out Marquette at home. It just,
I think the 2 that stand out the most is I was at my sister-in-law's house in Virginia when we beat St. John's over Christmas. And I was nervous for that game because there was no Donovan. St. John's was playing well. You don't want to start the Big East with 2 losses. And it's just, that game was such a nail biter. That was one of our toughest games of the year. And I feel like St. John's played us close every game we played them. Right. But then also the Xavier game. I remember sitting in my living room, and my sons were around, and I was just looking around this is just not real. This isn't it's just one of those games. It reminded me of a game from 1995 with Ray Allen, where they're playing Northeastern or something like that. You know what I mean? Some also ran, and that there are a bye game that they should win by 50. but this was a Big East opponent. That's what made
Right.
what was so mind-boggling.
Yeah, and that they struggled to beat earlier. Or
Yeah.
was it later? They play. Yeah, so I mean, it was a close game, and then they just demolished them. It wasn't even close. 5 minutes in, it was over.
Yeah, and then to hear Sean Miller say, we were like, they made us feel like we should never play basketball again, essentially.
Right.
Like, I don't think I've ever heard a coach. I've been in a lot of, not locker rooms, but a lot of press conferences listening to coaches after they lose or win. I've never heard a coach say that ever.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. You usually get the coach speak, well, it wasn't our night, blah, blah, blah. So kudos to Sean Miller that he actually, was very transparent about how his team felt. What else? Think about the Final Four and being there. What's different going into it, knowing that? I mean, I'll phrase it this way: you were a Final Four for both, right? For the last two seasons.
Yep.
So they win in 23, and then now we go into 24. What's Matt Edwards' perspective going into the Final Four? Is it you have to win it, or it's going to be a disappointment, or hey, we won last year, this is like gravy? What was your thoughts?
I never think that. I always want them to win. And I always expect the worst. And I think that I was thinking about this before. I know I should not. There's no reason why I should have been anything but confident in any tournament game. But I think it's it goes back to the dream season. I think because of what happened, you started buying in for this amazing run, and then you just got destroyed when Leitner hit the shot. And I don't think anybody that lived through that has ever fully recovered from it, despite all the success that we've had. So I'm sitting there, and I got a picture of I took a selfie to send my friends who were texting me during the Alabama game. And I was like, this is crazy. This is not, shouldn't be this close. But even though deep down I knew that they were going to probably pull it out, they're going to wear them down. They're so deep and so talented. This is going to happen. But I always feel nervous. But I never think, if they lose, this is going to happen. I just want them to win. And I don't think, obviously we could look back on it. If they did lose, it's okay. We won last year, blah, blah, blah. But I want them to win all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm always nervous that they're not going to.
Are you superstitious like Dan Hurley? Because he's made me very aware of my superstitions.
Big time. So I had to wear the same exact outfit for every postseason game. Everything had to be the same. I had to sit in the same spot. And then obviously when I went to the games, I'm like, all right, but I'm still going to wear white and I still got the same stuff. But yeah, so I had to throw caution to the wind in Arizona. But for the games on TV, everything is exactly the same. Like I have some kind of outcome on it, impact on the outcome. Which is
when I meet Dan Hurley, I will tell him that it was last season. I like there was, you get these deals from Fanatics or other places, and I got an email and it was like, I clicked on it and there was a shirt that was like a national champion shirt, and it had all of the scores on the back of just 2023, not the banners.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. And it was like $20. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get it. So I get it. I wear it. Which game do you think I wore that last year of all the games?
Creighton.
Yep. I have not worn that again. I haven't thrown it out, but it's buried.
Yeah.
it's like a ritual burying in my closet. My wife calls it laziness. I call it, I don't want to touch it. Right. So it just, you become weird about stuff like that. Right. Yep. I just feel like that's always been in me. And like, you'd have these kind of like little idiosyncrasies and you don't realize it. I started going to the gym in all UConn stuff. Like I'm playing the game essentially. And I had a buddy who went, hey, do you own any other clothes? And I was like, I didn't even notice. I honestly, it just becomes a routine.
I get that a lot. Everything you own is UConn. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I have something for every occasion. Like I have a couple of great UConn polos. If someone said, hey, Mark, you want to go play golf? That's going on.
Yep.
I have workout gear. I have nicer stuff. Like if my wife says, hey, do you want to go to dinner? I'll wear like a long sleeve. But yeah, I think it's just kind of all in us. It's weird, but
yeah.
I don't, have you caught this? I've created a new game that is Dan Hurley inspired, and it's for all of us who like to play basketball as part of our workouts. So next time you go, there's no snazzy name yet. It's basically just the Dan Hurley half court challenge.
Yep.
So you score it like golf, and you take 18 individual shots from half court. Every time you miss, wherever you rebound it, you have to try to make it from that spot. So that if you get it in 2 shots, that's like a birdie. If you get it in 3, that's par. So even par is 54.
Okay.
So you try to get the lowest score possible. I'd like the angle of, this isn't official yet, so if you're scoring at home, if you make 3 shots in a row, make 3 half-court shots in a row, you automatically win the game.
It's over.
What do you think about that?
I like it. It's over.
You should definitely try it. It's
I will.
I had a convert yesterday at the gym, and I saw him shooting a couple half-court shots. I said, "Hey, you want to learn a game?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And I showed him, and he was like, "This is awesome." I'm telling you, if you think I'm crazy, try it one time. It's better in an indoor gym because if you do it outside, you're going to be all over the place.
Right.
But at indoor gym, ball careens all over the place. And the best is this dude hit a 30-foot birdie, and he goes, "That was a birdie." And I went, "That's awesome." You know what I mean? I wasn't paying attention. I went about my own business, and he was into it. And I'm telling you, you start doing it, you feel a little weird at first, but then you start to play, and you're like, "This is so cool." I'm telling you.
I like it.
Gotta play it.
Spread the gospel. We'll do it.
Spread the gospel of the Dan Hurley Challenge. All right. Well, listen, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have you turned down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We'll be back with Matt Edwards after this. All right, Matt, talk to me about, I did a show about a week ago, probably the same day, so maybe last Thursday or Friday, and I started doing these top 5 lists. And it's not your top 5 greatest Huskies of all time. I think everyone has very similar ones there. Although when you do go back and look at the greatest of all time, like even when I was born, when you were born, prior to kind of UConn being this basketball juggernaut, people may have different opinions there, right? But I like doing kind of top 5 role players, guys who were the glue guys. Perfect example for me is a Kevin Freeman type. Could have been a star maybe at another place, but he was around such a great amount of players. He was limited in other things. Who are your, throw some names out. Who are your top 5-ish? Maybe we'll get up to 10 of your greatest role players. You give me a reason why. Monquencio Hardnet's on my list just because his name is awesome.
Yeah, love Q.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. What you got?
So go back. We'll start with Spider Ursary.
Okay.
From the NIT team. Rest in peace, Spider. But he was another guy that was just solid, did the dirty work. Again, the role player thing is kind of Rod Sellers. He fit a role. He was the big guy that rebounded. Talik Brown, his role was to run the show and dish out assists.
It's
but I know you're thinking,
totally.
Yes, but I'm thinking more like the rebounded, the guys that don't score a lot, that just kind of, do this stuff.
To your point, Matt, I asked a buddy of mine who is an alum, a 03 alum, so he's my age. He said, I sent him that list, and he goes, Rashad Anderson's on my list. I mean, a lot of people don't think Rashad Anderson was a role player, but he wasn't the star on that team.
Right.
I mean, that's a role player. So it's very wide open. So have at it.
Yeah. So Spider Ursary, and then we move on. So Willie McLeod, he only played 2 years. He was also on the NIT team, just a rebounding force. And then I think I go to defensive stoppers. So Lyman DePriest.
I knew you were going to say him. Yep.
So Lyman, and then Ricky Moore, obviously, who I get fit your definition, could be a star anywhere because he could score when he needed to. We saw it in the first half of the title game in '99, but he locked up Iverson. He could help out Ray and get the ball in the bucket. And so I think of those guys. And then Kevin Freeman for sure, absolutely another. But Jeff Adrian,
another great one.
Yeah, probably easily one of my all-time top 5 Huskies. But again, Rashad Anderson came up because Joey California, the sharpshooter, comes off the bench, nailed a couple threes, just changed the whole momentum of a game.
Absolutely. Kirk King, that's another great one. Yep. I loved Kirk King. He had, when people were enamored with guys of his size being as great of an athlete as they were, he comes to mind. He had a 48-inch vertical leap, something stupid like that. Just ridiculous. Could jump over a car probably.
and just an enforcer, just like a linebacker out there. It was, like Adrian, just built like Adrian. And then Donnie Marshall, another one. We forget about him all because he's in the news. He's on our radar all the time for other reasons, but he's another guy that, that was Ray's team, but Donnie was in there again, enforcing, grabbing rebounds, throwing elbows and talking some smack. So there's a lot.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Rod Sellers, you bring him up. I love Rod Sellers, one of my favorite players of all time. Just such a cool cat, and honestly, the whole like Leitner angle only made him more legend. Of a legend,
absolute legend for that alone.
Absolutely,
but we love him for everything. Like you said, he's just a great guy in general. He's part of the reason that Dream Season Pod exists is because of Rod. So many thanks to him. But yeah, he scored the first points in Gamble, first UConn points in Gamble, and bashed Leitner's head in the floor of the Silverdome. Just a legendary moment for sure.
Thank you for crystallizing that. That was awesome. He slammed his head on the floor, and
I just dribbled it a couple times. He was going for the ball.
Absolutely. I think there's guys that I'm trying to think of some other guys that we are not missing out on, but like who I think is a role player, because again, he ended up being a first round pick. Like there's two of them, Hilton Armstrong and Josh Boone. I think those guys again were part of a collective. They were not.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, like that 04 to 06 season or whenever they were around. I'm probably off on that by a little bit. It's just like, who do you pick, right? I mean, because like when you're on that 06 team, Jeff Adrian was was on that squad, right? And that was a team that fell short, but they had like 6 guys who played professional basketball on that team, either in the NBA or overseas. Denham Brown. That's another great one.
Yep. Jeremy Lamb on the 11. He was a freshman that just all of a sudden now here's a kid who can just give him the ball and he's going to score and take the heat off of Kemba a little bit. Let Jeremy.
And it's another one, again, second round pick, probably wouldn't have got drafted if he didn't have such an incredible run. DeAndre Daniels. DeAndre Daniels was prior to that run with Kemba in that squad, or or that's Shabazz's team. I apologize, but like prior to that run, like he just wasn't that solidified of a player, right? He was definitely more of a player that I wouldn't even say you could count on him at that point. And then all of a sudden, it was like someone flipped a switch. I think about that run a lot, where it's like that dude went off. Like it's just like, have we ever had a guy go that crazy like that? Because he was a good player, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't, the guy that you could turn to in time of trouble. He was just, he certainly was in that NCAA tournament.
That shot from the corner against Florida when they were down, and they can hear the net snapping still to this day. It was just beautiful. But again, to my point, when I was thinking about your question, like they've had so many great teams, true teams over the years. Yep. Everybody is a role player because everybody fit their role. Even the superstars, sure. Ray Allen fit a role, Rip Hamilton fit a role, Khaled fit a role, because they knew exactly what they needed to do all the way up through this year's team. Everybody knew exactly what was expected of them and what not. They didn't try to do too much in most cases. And that's why we've had so many great teams over the years.
And it's so funny because when you say that, like the teams that didn't, get to the promised land, maybe they lost early or didn't make the NCAA tournament, whatever the cases were, they didn't have enough of that, right? Or maybe they had too much of, like a star thinking where, like I was a great high school player. I need to do this, this, and this. Like they didn't buy into the program as much as these other guys did. So, and that happens. You can't have the consistency, over and over again. Like, God, I mean, let's hope Dan Hurley keeps that going, right? The thought process is to keep having these role players, star quality with a role player's mentality. Like, that would be great. That would be the thought process going forward, I guess. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Last one on my list. And I didn't mention him last time I did this. Ryan Boatwright, the boat show.
Yeah. God,
I miss that kid. He's playing it for Shooting Stars, TBT.
Yep, that's going to be fun to watch.
I'm looking forward to that. I hope we get some guys that are playing overseas to come back and play a little bit. That's pretty much been if you look at that tournament, there's been a lot of Euro players that have come back either to play for a former team or they kind of create these kind of super teams, if you will. Mm-hmm. But they're mostly made of European players that aren't playing in the NBA. And
Right.
we have a couple good ones: Shabazz, Kemba, Niels Giffey.
Yep.
Come back and help these dudes win $1 million, dude. Come on.
And we got that dream season connection with the head coach, Chris Smith.
Absolutely. And his son is the assistant.
Yep.
Jeff Adrian, Joey California is on the team. Ryan Boatwright. I think those are the confirmed, right?
Yes.
I think DeAndre's playing too.
I think
Perfect.
so. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to that. I love that we're going to have that kind of UConn connection to that tournament. They've done an amazing job. The Elam ending is really cool. If you guys haven't seen that yet, I hope that Ryan Boatwright comes to mind when you think of the Elam ending. That's all I'm going to say. Right?
Yeah.
He's the guy I want with the ball in his hands. If we need a shot to win
Just end it. Exactly.
Well, Matt, thank you so much. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. For Matt Edwards of the Dream Season Pod, we ask you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.